Good morning. Thank you all for attending the memorial ceremony for City of Elmhurst Marshal Harry F. Magers, who died in the line of duty on November 2nd, 1920, 100 years ago today. We will begin with the posting of colors by the Elmhurst Police Department Honor Guard. Good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Michael McLean. Thank you all for participating in this important memorial to honor City of Elmhurst Marshal Harry Magers, who died in the line of duty 100 years ago today. When a police officer gives his life in defense of his community, it's a tragedy, but it is also a sacrifice that will never be forgotten by those who he protected and those who follow in his footsteps. Marshal Magers lived a life of service to both his country and his city. His great bravery, spirit, and dedication to duty is honored by us today, and his story lives on through us. In 1920, Elmhurst was a city, incorporated 10 years prior in 1910. The city had 4,594 residents. However, the Elmhurst Police Department had not yet been established. Law and order in the city was provided by a single city marshal. A year prior, in the fall of 1919, Harry Magers was appointed as Elmhurst's 9th Marshal after serving first in the U.S. Navy and then also serving in the U.S. Army during World War I. Harry Magers was born in Elmhurst and highly regarded by its residents. He was affectionately referred to as Moggy by the townspeople. He grew up on Kenilworth Avenue, attended Hawthorne School, and got married in September 1919, just before his appointment. Harry was paid a salary of $110 a month to patrol the unpaved streets on his motorcycle. Policing during that time was quite different. There were no bulletproof vests or police radios, and no backup officers. Marshal Magers had just his badge, his gun, and his smile to keep the peace. Newspaper articles from the period reported the events that led to Marshal Magers' tragic death. On October 31st, 1920, just after midnight, the Maurer family was returning home on York Street from the Masonic Temple. They were confronted by two highwaymen that robbed them. After the robbery, the Maurer's son Wallace ran to the home of the Allport family to summon Marshal Magers. Upon arriving to the scene, Magers dismounted his motorcycle and spoke to the witnesses. At that time, he saw the two suspects walking toward the intersection of York Street and St. Charles Road. As Magers walked towards the men, one ran east and the other, Thomas Smith, ordered the marshal to put his hands up at gunpoint. Marshal Magers drew his pistol and the two men exchanged gunfire. Marshal Magers was shot in the abdomen and Smith was shot in the ankle before fleeing the scene. After the shooting, Marshal Magers was taken to Dr. Lester Hill's home at 116 Cottage Hill to have his wound dressed before being taken to West Suburban Hospital in Oak Park. An immediate search was begun and fresh blood was found on the property of the Feltz home at 206 Maple Street. The wounded suspect was found there, and Smith was later taken to West Suburban Hospital where he was identified by the mortally wounded Marshal Magers. Smith was taken away to jail in Wheaton to face his charges. Tragically, 26-year-old Marshal Harry Magers succumbed to his wounds on the morning of November 2nd, 1920. The Elmhurst community honored Harry with a funeral on Friday, November 5th. All banks and businesses were closed from noon to 4 p.m. so all the residents could attend. From 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., his body lay in state at St. Peter's Church. A U.S. Navy and U.S. Army honor guard stood watchfully over Marshal Magers as the city paid its respects. His motorcycle stood outside the church, draped in black. The funeral service included an address by the president of Elmhurst College before the lengthy but solemn procession took Marshal Magers to his final resting place at Elmlawn Cemetery. The Elmhurst community set up the Harry Magers Memorial Fund, which raised $477 to erect this lasting memorial and tributes to their fallen city marshal. In another lasting legacy, newspaper articles of the time cited Marshal Magers' death as a catalyst for the establishment of Elmhurst Hospital, deeming close medical care a public necessity for a city of Elmhurst's size. Marshal Harry Magers' name is inscribed on the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., along with 22,000 other officers who have given their lives in service to their communities. The history of Harry Magers would be incomplete without recognizing the bravery, service, and sacrifice of his actions that October night. Harry responded alone in the dark of night to confront two armed men who were robbing his fellow Elmhurst neighbors. Harry put his own life on the line so that others would not fall victim to crime. He did this not because it was his job, but because it was his duty. Service to his community was at the core of who he was. Elmhurst police officers today wear stars, patrol these streets, and enforce laws just like he did. We do this with the support of our residents to protect them, to ensure their rights, and to maintain the freedom of all people through justice. Let us honor him and be deserving of that privilege by dedicating ourselves to being the best police officers we can be. For others have sacrificed their lives in the service of the same profession. Harry Magers' memorial inscription speaks to us all. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Thank you. The Elmhurst Police Honor Guard will now place the memorial wreath at his final resting place.
We would like to thank everyone who participated today in this ceremony to honor the memory of Chief Magers. We recognize and honor his sacrifice for the citizens of Elmhurst and the courage of all the officers who put on the badge every day. It is such a special trait to be able to run into danger when called upon by his community, like he did that night, to confront armed robbers by himself. It was such a different time where he knew going into it that he did not have a radio, backup, but he knew what he was doing was the right thing to protect the citizens of Elmhurst. For that, it is not only important for us to honor Chief Magers and remember his sacrifice, but it is also important that we're here to recognize the courage and the sacrifices our officers make on a daily basis. To conclude our presentation, we would like to thank the members of the Honor Guard, Sergeant Matt Himpelman, Officers Christopher Horner, Jason Litton, and Philip Southworth. For coordinating this event, thank you to Deputy Chief Mike McLean and Chief Ruth. And thank you very much to Elmhurst Police Explorer Brenton Russo for videotaping and editing this video so our community can look back in remembrance. Thank you.